The January Man, directed by Pat O'Connor, written by John Patrick Shanley, released 1989, starring Kevin Kline. The opening of the film does a great job at setting up the atmosphere of New York and the atmosphere of the new year. Mary Elizabeth Mastroianni is a 31-year-old playing a 23-year-old. Van Grant makes the most of being the first victim in this movie with being crazy and talking to the fish. She is the first woman to get killed by the January Man 4 minutes into the movie, and the scene where she's getting killed is really good at having a unique New Year atmosphere with having the ball drop while she's getting killed. Harvey Keitel is this guy that doesn't respect the person who's going to solve who's killing all the women. Both him and Rod Stinger do a over the top performance in this scene, but it's fine because that fits the tone of the rest of the movie. Kevin Kline is a fireman in this movie, which adds a interesting risk-taking part of his personality, so he can trust him to do dangerous things like catch a killer and solve a crime. But Harvey Keitel doesn't want his respect of the city to go away, so he wants to be the only person who solves the crime of who's killing all the women. Harvey Keitel is also trying to date Kevin Kline's ex-wife, played by Susan Soberon. That is another conflict that adds to them not liking each other in this film. A scene where we see Jane Haves do her first nude scene in only her second role. We meet a painter who's a very eccentric character, played by Alan Rickman. In this scene, Harvey Keitel says that Kevin Kline being a detective for this crime might make the city look at him like dog food. And Rod Singer is a bit over top in this scene, but that's fine. Next, Sharon Down looks at pictures of when they used to be together, her and Kevin Kline. In this scene, Kevin Kline fails to convince her that they had happy times together. This is both a very intense scene and a funny scene. Also, Kevin Kline is so pretentious with the food he eats, like a octopus and a bunch of random vegetables. What is that? Some sort of Spain delicacy? They are able to get the stress of the reporters talking to Rod Singer in a very quick way that's effective. Baron Tarnitine does a good job at making this scene where he tells that one of the people who are solving the case is a painter. Danny Alio does a great job at his over-the-top acting angry in this scene, but he doesn't interrupt Kevin Kline too much, so it looks more like a real conversation, which makes it even funnier. Mary Elizabeth Mastroianni does a good job in this scene at crying when she hears that her friend is dead, and Kevin Kline is like, her crying is so beautiful that now I want to date her. So Kevin Kline follows her to a ski rink, and this movie thinks Kevin Kline is so charming that he can follow a woman and fail at skiing and still get a date with her. During the day conversation, Kevin Kline tries to appeal to her emotional side by listening to her talk about life and how it feels to lose a loved one. Of course, Kevin Kline was emotional and charming enough for them to have sex in the next scene. In that scene, we learn that Mary Elizabeth Mastroianni is playing a 23-year-old who is younger than Kevin Kline, who seems to be playing a person in his late 40s. Next, she meets the painter, Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman also charms her. So there's a lot of relationship conflict with all these men trying to charm this woman in this movie. Next, Kevin Kline and Harvey Keitel speculate about the killer's childhood. Kevin Kline says the killer probably had a dark childhood, Then Harvey Keitel says, "Well, Kevin Kline, you're a genius." This is a great scene to give room for Kevin Kline to be kind of intelligent. We'll talk about the character's childhood, and also giving room for Harvey Keitel to mock him. Next, we get a scene with a song that implies being a young woman with an older man is a magical thing. I guess that's the 80s. Next, we get a scene with Susan Sarbon telling her that she's gonna need to drink a lot if she's dating Kevin Kline. Next, we get a scene where they looked at the computer and they noticed that the killer kills in prime numbers. This is a very good scene that shows Kevin Kline's intelligence and also has some feeling over the top acting from Danny Aiello. Next, we get kind of a boring scene where they all talk about who's going to get money when the killer gets caught. I guess this is the scene where all the actors can have subtle acting. Next, we get another scene that shows Kevin Kline's character's intelligence, where he figures out what building the killer is going to strike next. Next, we see the killer kill a woman, and this is the scariest scene in the film. This scene is very well filmed because we never see the killer's face, and it's the most interesting directed part of this movie. Next, there was a scene where Alan Rickman showed his intelligence with computers, but anyways, next we see that the killer killed himself, but Kevin Kline does not think that that is the killer's body, and the acting here is over the top for Rod Singer, but convincingly intelligent for Kevin Kline. It works for the scene. We get another scene where Kevin Kline puts the pieces together of who the killer might be. Of course, you're tired, you're drinking during this entire scene. Pointless scene that shows that one of the people working on this movie was very interested in astrology. We get a real and casually acted scene where Kevin Kline and Danny Alio tries to convince Kevin Kline that the case is closed, that the guy who committed suicide was the killer. Next, we see a scene where Alan Rickman puts a choker around Mary Elizabeth Mastroianni. Okay, everybody who wanted to see her with a Roman style choker is now very excited right now. Anyways, in this scene, Alan Rickman figures out where the killer is. It's another great scene that shows Alan Rickman's character's intelligence. So in the next scene, they're waiting where the killer might be. So Alan Rickman pulls out some food, and it's old Dunkin' Donuts and Pringles. And this is a very funny scene in a real way. Next, there's a scene where Kevin Kline tells a random woman not to tell anybody what they're up to. This is a scene where Kevin Kline is very scary and intense. Next, they put her in the room with the killer, and this is a very intense scene. Her acting is very good here, and it's kind of a scary situation, even though you are kind of thinking about why doesn't the killer just take out his knife. I guess it is fitting for this movie to end on a silly montage where they're trying to guess the killer. So the movie ends with the killer getting arrested and Kevin Kline having a nice little ending conversation with his ex-wife. But the movie still ends with a older man being with a 23-year-old woman. So that's the January Man. Even though this movie has an airport relationship with its main characters, I mean, for a time that wasn't inappropriate and it fits this movie's tone, so that's fine. And all the actors do a good job of having chemistry, so that also makes it work. And a lot of the flaws of this movie, like over top acting and the ending where why doesn't the killer just pull out a knife, that all fits with this movie's tone, so I don't think you can really call them flaws. So overall, I recommend this goofy, intelligent, and intense film This movie has great conversations and great comedic scenes, so I recommend it. Bye.